Street repair and maintenance is being addressed by a couple of fortuitous circumstances. One is direction from the City Council to look for additional funding. We have done so. We've reallocated funding. We've gone from about $250,000 to $300,000 of annual street maintenance funding, which we accumulate every 2 years and do a maintenance project. That funding now, last year I believe, was around $780,000. This year is over $800,000 to address our pavement maintenance plan. So we have essentially doubled and then some of the allocation towards streets. So again, as part of the strategic planning process and the way that we're budgeting at this point, we're able to reallocate. Now, that does not mean that we have money coming out of our ears. It's just council directed through the strategic planning process, and we're able to address these other issues. The city shop, on the other hand, turned out to be the first estimate of what it would cost to replace the city shop was a significant amount of money, upwards of $20 million. That was too big of a bite to try and fund internally, and it is something that, as we're looking for different alternatives, we just need additional time to work that out. So staff is working on some different alternatives and proposals for addressing the city shop. The city shop is still a high priority and needs to be addressed, and that will be the next thing that we work on after this bond issue we're talking about tonight. So, going into the recycling center, how does that tie into the police services facility assessment? This is what we talked about a year and a half ago, and again on November 20th. So, the city commissioned a study to explore the possibility of constructing a new police station at the current recycling center location. If you recall, we did a search for land that was available in a central Moscow location for replacement of the police station. We looked as far north as Highway 95 by Moscow Building Supply. We looked as far south as Palouse River Drive, as far east as Blaine Street, and as far west as Line Street. The only lot that filled the needs of accessibility and availability was the recycling center site on Jackson Street. It happened to dovetail with the strategic planning concept for the recycling center, that the operations that were moving through, the changes that the recycling center was going through, made the site of the current recycling center not optimal for continued recycling activities, and we'll address that. And you had Tim tonight, Tim Davis, proposed and council approved moving forward with the study to obtain additional information from the community as to what services the recycling center supplies and would work in a new recycling center. And once those services are determined, then one could be sized and property could be obtained in order to provide those services. So again, the current recycling center site, not well suited for the single stream recycling system. We've seen an increase of about 133% in recycling volumes, and there's inadequate processing and storage capacity at that center at this point. Most of the most of the single stream recycling now is taken to the recycling center where it was dropped off. It's brought in a Packer recycling type truck, dropped off, and it is baled as a single stream, placed on a truck and taken to Tacoma, where it is taken to a materials recovery facility. The bales are cut, the recycling is separated and processed over there. So a lot of the operation at the current recycling center is not drop-off, it is baling. Secondly, the yard waste drop-off is not configured very well. We, from the original drop-off, about 10 years into it, about 2002, 2003, we reconfigured the drop-off into the Z-block formation that you see behind there now. So we've increased the capacity somewhat. It is no longer able to increase the capacity even more. Additionally, it's placed at the top of the vertical curve of Almond Street, which is to say that people are backing trailers in off of Almond Street as traffic which may not see the people backing up is proceeding both north and south on Almond Street. We've been very lucky in that area. People know it's dangerous and they tend to slow down during those seasons, but there are safety concerns. concerns. So again, Tim identified the master plan that we're proceeding with at this point. In that period of time, you will recall that after we had reported to council that the optimal site seemed to be the recycling center site, we also looked at the federal building, which is currently owned by Gritman Medical Center. We worked with Gritman for approximately a year to try and determine whether that property would be available, what it would cost to adapt it to the reuse as a police station, as well as to house other city facilities. Ultimately, it proved to be too expensive, and we could not proceed with that. So we came back to the council in November requesting further directions. So we looked back at the last proposal that we put together, and that was the recycling center. What you see before you is the current recycling center. That is Hungadunga Brewery off to the right, which is to the north. The south is C Street between St. John Hardware and the current recycling center. If you look at the wall that is between the current building and the C Street right-of-way, right here, everything to the south of that was purchased about, I want to say about 2000 from, it was the Helbling Land Company, its former Burlington Northern right-of-way. After it was purchased, there was an expansion of the recycling center to take the drop-offs and move them over here so that your forklifts would be moving back in this direction, that the public would come in from here and out, that sort of thing. However, that did not address the yard waste drop-off issues. So, and during that same period of time, council determined that they wanted C Street to go through. C Street is a substandard street. There's no parking allowed on C Street. It is merely connector between Jackson and Almond, thank you. Okay, so should a police services facility be constructed on that site? This is the basic configuration. This is the main area. This is the public parking lot, secured parking lot, and a storage facility. Got some additional floor plans. You can't see them from here. If you'd like to see them in more detail, certainly able to provide those. This was done in conjunction with the Technical Advisory Committee, which comprised of city staff, including a large contingent of the police department, as well as in conjunction with LCA Architects out of Boise, firm that does these sort of buildings. So that was the first floor you saw there. This is the second floor. And then on to some elevations. This is looking in a westerly direction off of Jackson Street. This is an elevation looking to the northwest. I believe that was the northwest. Another elevation. So that's, again, this is all conceptual design. It has not been designed for construction at this point. That is something that will be done should we be successful with our bond election. So as part of that, obviously moving the police department out of the 4th Street location would leave that building available for repurposing or sale. At the beginning of this process, we looked at it and we were on the fence about it. We thought perhaps it could be resold and perhaps offset part of the bond issue or cost of the construction of the new police station. Looked at that and looked at the existing city facilities. The Gritman Medical Center purchase, or our proposed purchase of the federal building, would have allowed us, it was a large enough facility, it would have allowed us to house other city operations there, namely community development, engineering, as well as the information systems department. So we would have taken care of all of our space needs for the next 20 some odd years at least. When that went off the table, we had the police station we were still working on that looked like it was going to need to be addressed with a single purpose police station. And then secondly, we had the issues of the engineering department, information systems department, and community development, currently housed in substandard, I guess, inadequate space, both in the Mann Building at the Eagan Youth Center. So we looked, and was there a way that we could address those issues as well? So we worked with Associated Architects to take a look and see if it would be possible to reconfigure the 4th Street current police station to house some of the necessary city functions. So they did, and it was determined that community development and engineering could be relocated to that site. The parking is not as optimal as we would like it to be, but it is adequate for those purposes. And it is an existing city facility that is very economical to repurpose. If you look, we were looking at the facilities master plan, as I indicated before. The estimate of constructing a new office building to house these facilities would be $3.6 million.